My name is Rich Stuppy. I'm the CCEO, Chief Customer Experience Officer at Kount. And today, I'm here to talk about some emerging and persistent fraud trends. All right, so our agenda, I'm going to talk about the big three of fraud, some trends related to those big three, including credential stuffing, automated email API credential stuffing, resellers, drop shippers, and retail arbitrage, refund services that have commercialized conducting fraudulent refunds, and then some interesting either fraud or non-fraud use cases or fun stuff that we've been able to work with our clients on to help them solve complex problems, both with our platform and with our data, and then wrap up with fraud that's hiding in other areas of the business that you might not be able to find unless you look for it. So the big three types of fraud, I think we've heard it repeatedly, but it's payment fraud, account takeover, and account creation fraud. But there are many variations on these themes. Our clients use the Kount platform in varying ways to address all three of those things. And what I want to talk about today is just some of the different approaches and the different drivers of what the bad guys are doing and how they're doing it and how our customers are addressing it. And it really, I'm hoping that this will be some fun and entertaining and things that you might not have heard before. I was listening intently to the other groups and presentations yesterday, and I heard snippets about credit origination, about refund problems, about resellers, and it got me excited that I think this is going to be interesting for you guys because you're feeling it, but you might not know some of the drivers behind it. So the first trend I want to talk about is credential stuffing. Credential stuffing has been around for a while. How many people here, by show of hands, know what credential stuffing is? Okay, great. For those that don't, it's a term of art in the fraud and fraud prevention landscape. Basically, it's when criminals take large numbers of usernames and passwords. They call those combos or combo lists that are derived from breaches, and they programmatically stuff those credentials into login pages and apps interfaces and to take over accounts. And the reason they can do this is because consumers or our customers reuse the same username and password across a bunch of different sites. Okay? So now, who knows what credential stuffing is? That's everybody, okay? So how do they do it? They start with basically two main raw materials. One is the massive amount of credentials that are available from breaches. There was news earlier this year about the advertisement of 7 collections of compromised accounts that were stored in folders, and it was basically 900 gigabytes of usernames and passwords, all available for sale. The second main ingredient is easy to use tools that are designed to take those usernames and passwords, combine them with proxies, combine them with bots, and then conduct brute force attacks against your login pages and your apps. These brute force attacks are high velocity attacks, and there have been studies conducted that have said up to 90% of login traffic on some websites is malicious traffic attempting to do credential stuffing. And it makes sense because these tools can hammer the login page with hundreds or thousands of attempts in the same amount of time that a regular user would log in once or twice, right? And so these velocity attacks, while problematic, are actually, they're relatively easy to see, detect, and prevent. So this next trend is credential stuffing against email APIs. So this is using customized utilities like Mail Ranger, Woxy, Athena. Athena is a new tool for this specific purpose that was released in March on various places, but we saw it on Nulled. And it was released in March of 2019, and rather than being sold as a tool, they're just giving it away for free. The protocol that they use is IMAP protocol. And the IMAP protocol was designed in the 1990s when security around APIs was not a thing. It's designed to be very fast, very effective, and allow you to read, search, and comb through mailboxes without actually downloading any of the mail. So that makes it very, very fast, very, very effective, and you can have a single console that allows you to look at literally hundreds of thousands of accounts and test literally millions of accounts that are on servers. So this provides easy access and an easy mechanism for the bad guys to take over a mail account and then scan the mailboxes that are taken over for things like password resets, intercepting email confirmations and order confirmations, and in general, understanding what credentials have been used to register with your retail sites and your internet businesses. Make sense? So I'm going to walk through just an example so you can see it using screenshots from promotional activities for Mail Ranger 2. This was a product that was released in late 2018, originally available for sale, has since been cracked and is basically distributed all over the place. Be warned, the cracked versions are probably smashed full of malware, but it's a really sophisticated tool. It allows you to take, this is an interface where you take credentials and proxies and bots and configure them to attack the preloaded about 2.5 million IMAP servers that come packaged in this product. When you conduct it inside the red square, you can see these are the emails that have been compromised. These are the passwords that were matched with those emails. And these are the IMAP servers, things like mobile.charter.net, imap.ntworld, etc. So when they show up there, those are called hits, and that means that the credentials and the email address match and are available to access the email. This is the next part. Once you get your set of accounts, and literally you can take that process and in the space of minutes have hundreds, if not thousands, of compromised mail accounts. So this interface allows you to see the messages, allows you to do a search, and allows you to see the contents of the messages and copy and paste out of the contents of the messages things like a password reset link. So this is the dialog box where you can put in a search string. And so what they do is they take a very specific search string for the things that they're looking for. For example, a video game company. So you search for a video game company, and you search for the word password reset or password confirmation or just password, and it'll show you across the mailboxes things that match that criteria. Keyword, login, you can sort it by date, the sender, the subject. Then when you click on one of those, you see the actual text inside the email. And this gives you the ability to do this across hundreds of accounts, across thousands of messages. And you can reach inside there, copy and paste the password reset link, for example. Okay? So let's talk about so what's the bad stuff that happens with this? I know it's probably obvious, but basically, if you have a password reset link on your page or in your apps, this takes what formerly was a targeted, high-velocity credential stuffing attack against your company and turns it into basically a one-click synthetic identity password reset attack. Much harder to stop. And I think all of us at one time or other in our businesses have used email as an essentially trusted channel of communication with our clients. If you see this, it casts doubt into the idea that that is still a trusted channel. And all of this is super easy account takeover. If they have that trusted channel, it's also super easy for account creation. And then in the end, because you feel like you're communicating with your consumer through a trusted channel, but you're not, and you're doing things that you think you're doing on their behalf, but you're not, it leads to angry and confused customers. And this is something that I've heard repeatedly from folks that are victims of the account takeover and false account creation. The customers are very confused. They're blaming the merchant because the consumer thinks it's the merchant. And it's not the merchant's fault at all, not our client's fault at all. In the end, it's the consumers that are reusing things in email and the bad guys that are targeting that. So what do you do about that? This changes the game to some degree on how you have to think about your customer journey and your customer's experience. You have to really think about where all the key points are, where the damage can be done, where a login happens, where a password reset happens, where the profile change happens, and again, obviously payments. But you have to think about those areas, and you have to add the appropriate amount of data collection and protection. And it's got to be balanced. Can't be too much friction. It's the stuff that we heard repeatedly yesterday. The other thing I would say is this. When I describe this sounds like a problem that would be in the domain of IT, security, the CISO, other parts of the business, and it's incumbent for us as fraud professionals that when we understand this, to take this information to those other areas of the business and educate them. Kount, our approach is for data collection and protection. We have clients all over that use Kount Access, that use Kount Complete in our upcoming digital account protection product to prevent and to protect against just this sort of difficult attack. Does it make sense so far? Following me? Great. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is resellers, dropshippers, and retail arbitrage. Resellers, traditional resellers, have always been a bit of a problem. They buy from your sites and they sell them online or in the physical world. When I first was exposed to it about 15 years ago, it was college towns. They would go buy something on a promotion, and then they would sell it out of their dorm room or post it on eBay, and they buy 50 digital cameras at the super discount loss leader price, and then they're making 15, 20 bucks a camera. They get beer money, and the retailer basically loses out on what I call the promotional intention of that incentive to buy. They spend, tens of thousands of dollars on a promotional incentive thinking that they're going to get 10, 50, 100, 1,000 new customers, and what they got is 10 people in dorm rooms selling 10,000 cameras or whatever. Probably not illegal, but it might violate your terms of service, etc. In general, smallish problem. Then they added drop shipping. And drop shipping, how many people here are familiar with drop shipping? Okay, everybody's got drop shipping. So customer places an order on a reseller's website or marketplace account, pays the reseller through normal channels. The reseller places the order on your site. Then you drop ship that product to the customer. The customer receives more or less what they ordered, except there's some weird stuff. Maybe it has a gift receipt, which is weird. Or maybe it's from the wrong company at a price on the packing slip that's much lower than the price that they bought it for. That leads to confusion and dissatisfaction. So then you add the next concept, which is retail arbitrage. How many folks are familiar with retail arbitrage? Okay. So this is the idea of doing automated high volume reselling where you are their supply chain. It starts with business enabling software that completely automates the resell, the rebuy, and the dropship process. It automates comparing. It automates monitoring listings on your sites for price, for stock levels, availability, etc. It automates the purchasing from your sites and then automates the dropshipping and label management, etc. These tools can enable automated listing of thousands of items. And you basically, in retail arbitration or arbitrage parlance, you become their supplier. You become their supply chain. So when we juxtapose the old college days of manual reselling to automated retail arbitrage, manual reselling slow, maybe a pain to the retailer, but not a big deal. Retail arbitrage automates everything, dramatically changes the game, and causes a lot of negativity for the merchant. And there are a bunch of platforms that do this: SKU-Grid, Profit Scraper, SKU Scraper, Dropship Beast. Google retail arbitrage tool comparison, and you will see how built out this industry is. I'm going to show one example because I'm a visual guy. I like to see the pictures of how they approach stuff. Makes it real for me. It makes it easier to look for it in the real world. But my example is SKU-Grid. I consider these guys the longest lasting and best retail arbitrage platform out there. They support 20 plus marketplaces, and they're adding more all the time, if you believe their advertising, but it's Amazon, eBay, Woo, Shopify, Etsy, BigCommerce. They can manage in a single account up to 3,000 SKUs. They have 800 plus supplier sites, which are e-commerce businesses, and it's configurable to buy at the absolute lowest price in volume and resell at the absolute highest price. And it's got evasion technology built in to the platform to keep you from blocking them and to keep you from stopping them. Available supplier stores, and if you go to SKU-Grid site, Google SKU-Grid and stores, you will see 800 plus sites, and I just picked some of these. Monthly costs ranging from about $15 to about $89. Each tier is more full featured than the next. And if you look at the $89 version, monitor and update up to 3,000 SKUs. So you pay $89 a month and you buy credits for each monitor, purchase, repost, etc. And they'll even throw in a free WooCommerce hosted site and a couple of other cool tools that help automate the reselling and arbitrage process. And pretty cheap. And there are people that are turning this into their full-time occupation. Well, I wouldn't call it full-time. It's really, once you get it dialed in, the stories that they tell is it becomes a set it and forget it revenue, or set it and forget it income opportunity. Some of their infrastructure, they know that this is not desirable for merchants. So they talk about how they power their infrastructure, US-based servers, load balanced, monitored to detect if they get blocked, but also evasion techniques to make sure that they're not easily blockable. Okay? So now, who all knows retail arbitrage? Yeah, is everybody great? As fraud people, this might sound familiar to you. Because what this sounds exactly like to me is triangulation fraud. We've been dealing with triangulation fraud for a long, long time. The main difference in triangulation fraud is there's a fraudulent seller and they're paying with a stolen credit card. Stolen credit card. The process works basically exactly the same. But now, if you combine automated retail arbitrage software with stolen credentials, you've got the possibility for, some really negative consequences. And so what are those negative consequences in sort of no particular order? This really corrupts your price positioning. It's very interesting to me that, especially on kind of specialized brands, high demand brands, the fraudsters have figured out, or the retail arbitrageurs have figured out, how to price above the traditional pricing target. Like they're targeting 25 to 40% above, and they're getting people to buy. It trains your customers to look for your products in the wrong place, in marketplaces, in other sites, et cetera. And as they're being trained to do that, they are being exposed to competitive or replacement type goods. So they may never buy the end good that they're looking for, that your demand generation has created. They may never buy it because they'll find a substitute good. This also creates negative margin or negative ROI customers. And these can be very high volume customers that pay their bills, but unless you do the analysis on them, you do not realize that every time they buy from you, you're losing money. It also corrupts the customer data and your understanding, because these folks look like very good customers. When they're paying their bills, they can look like very good customers until they don't. Because when those tools are used by fraudsters to go from reselling to drop shipping to retail arbitrage to triangulation fraud, that is a high volume, rapid attack from previously good paying customers potentially, or what look like good paying customers potentially, into a high volume, automated, high loss generating attack. So what do we do? Number one, okay, we're aware of this concept now. I think it's critically important to monitor promotions, to monitor discounts, to monitor the behavior of people doing that. Calculate margin and ROI. And as you calculate that margin and ROI, think about that, including that in some of your real-time decisions. We have clients that use, for example, a UDF that talks about the ROI or margin associated with their clients. And they identify and mark resellers. Once they identify and mark resellers, they can think about adjusting their terms of service, preventing them from doing this, making sure they don't go rogue, to put the brakes on them early, and in general, make sure that this sort of negative activity isn't impacting their profitability. Does that make sense? Of the folks that were familiar with resellers, how many think that reselling is a significant problem for their business? How many people are going to go home and check now? Good. My work here is done. But wait, there's more. Refund services. Refund services. So malicious refunds have always been a problem. Like, it's super easy to commit first-party fraud. In some respects, internet retailers, internet merchants, our clients have done some of this to themselves because the relentless focus on customer experience and customer lifetime value has made it very, 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 throw in another, very easy to get a refund. We kind of did it to ourselves. So refund services take this concept to the next level. So these are black market businesses that are based on refunds. For example, on Nulled, there are over 30 services advertising that they'll get you a refund for a percentage of the purchase price. And it's they claim that they can do it against hundreds of retailers and that they have an extremely high success rate. And I sort of believe them. How does it work? A consumer makes a purchase. The consumer receives the purchased goods, contacts the refund service, they agree on price. The refund service uses the techniques and protocols and processes of the retailer to obtain that refund. Once they obtain the refund, they send a confirmation to the consumer, and then the consumer pays them in PayPal or Bitcoin or crypto or whatever. And so as a consumer, I spend $400. I call the refund service. The refund service gets me my $400 back, and I pay them $40 to $80. Here's an example. Again, I'm visual. I like to see how they're advertising, what they're saying about it. It's men's refund service, proudly proclaimed that they have been established since 2018. They talk about how it works. And again, it's just kind of a restatement. Contact me, select a store, receive your order, let us know. I'll get you your refund, then you pay me off. And they tell you that they're, safe and professional, unbeatable prices, and what's a business without 24/7 support? And so, who are they doing this to? Like, who are they doing this to? Well, they say choose your stores. And the ones with the green dot, they say, extremely successful. They talk about sort of the way they do it. You can do one item at Costco, costs you 10%, US and Canada, and what we're going to do is we're going to say fake sign, and left outside fake sign means fake signature, right? They're going to say that it was not my signature, or they're going to say that I left it outside, or the package was left outside and porch pirate came and took it, right? And again, more stores, like tremendous brand names, more stores. And the kicker is, they say, if we're not on the list and you're you got a high volume thing, give us a call and we'll give it a try. Terms of service, they definitely do not want you doing a chargeback because that makes it more difficult for them to do this refund service in the future. They'll take 48 to 72 hours. They can refuse service, and they get this particular one gets paid in two methods: PayPal and Bitcoin. Okay. Quickly go through another one again, just because they're all basically the same. This is called Gucci's Refund Lounge. Again, trusted, highly vouched service. They're safe, professional, 24/7, honest and friendly. Contact me, select a store, yada, 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 get the refund. The stores that they work on, and if your store isn't there, 100 plus other ones that they can give it a try at. And they can have, again, their terms of service. But the bottom line is, and I do mean bottom line, they look forward to doing business with us or with the consumers together. So negative consequences. We all know that refunds lead to high operational costs. You end up with lost goods. Again, the lower negative ROI clients that learn to become addicted to this behavior, right? And since they can outsource it, any conscious paying, the conscience paying that you might get, the guilt of, geez, I'm stealing. When you can outsource stealing, it gets easier, I guess. Gives you a distorted customer service and product metrics. And the other thing that we've seen a lot of is the employees, like in the call center and the other areas, turnover, or just in general dissatisfaction, because the people that are getting these refunds, as they social engineer or cajole into getting the refund, they're abusive, aggressive. Or maybe sometimes they're sweet and tug at the heartstrings, but it is not fun to listen to them. So what to do? What to do about refunds? First and foremost, report refunds to Kount via our APIs, or we have a file mechanism through your client success manager. This is a signal for our models, but it also enables analytics. If you're, for example, a Chase customer, we already get, through the SafeTech integration, refunds, chargebacks, et cetera, on a very, very frequent basis. So calculate and monitor your refund rates and metrics, and then monitor the channels where it's coming from. And then use the Kount fraud data in addition to other data that you might be able to get. For example, information in call logs from your support center, or logs where people are online going and getting that refund processed. Monitor that, because you can see, if you look at it with a fraud detection eye, you can see that this is not normal refund type behavior. So look for the common approaches. I would say more and more retailers, as they see this and they can tell based on the intent and the behavior of the refunder and the data associated with the transaction, that they're dynamically adjusting the way they do refunds. They are saying, if we think you're a shyster, we are not going to give you a refund. And they're willing, it's become a big enough problem that they're willing to dynamically adjust their policy because they figured this out, that they're being taken advantage of. So I would say, when you go back, look at this and don't refund the fraudsters. We got to make it harder on them than they're making it on us. And then educate your other folks in the business that this is happening. Because if they don't have a fraud mindset, they don't think that this is happening. They don't think like this entity that is so smooth and has done this so many times and knows how to make it happen. They're designed to not be detected, and so they're hard to detect. Okay. All right, let's talk about some client trends, some fun stuff. I like this because this is the reaction that I see from our clients on myriad things that are happening to them and how they're addressing them, how they're using the Kount platform in fun and interesting ways. And this is the stuff that I get all jonesed up about when I go to visit or they come to visit us. Some basic examples. Solving complex problems with Kount. And some of these are fraud problems. Some of these are not fraud problems. A trend for some of our more sophisticated organizations and clients has been taking their data from our platform and providing it to their data scientists or their analytics team or their other business units to solve problems. We've got examples of people taking our data and using it they create an offline model for customer segmentation and classification. They help their marketing teams better understand the customers. And to me, the easiest example of this is when you look at marketing teams, they often have very, very solid funnel metrics, right? They see conversion very, very clearly. They know how many people and where they're at and what they do when they click buy and when they successfully complete the conversion. The thing they never do is they never subtract out the fraud. And we've seen that subtracting out the fraud data, whether they were declines or chargebacks or refunds, can dramatically change the top decile customers. Like it changed the firmographics or demographic of your top decile because the bad guys look just like the good guys. Like the sharks look like the whales. And subtracting that out can lead to some pretty powerful insights. And then when you have that data, it allows you to make more data-driven decisions about your customer journey. We've got clients that use our, no, I'll stop, I just want to pause. Does that stuff make sense? Kount data, it's a place where a ton of stuff is in the same place, the right place, and it's actionable. And when we think of actionable, the concept of using our real-time decision capability for some non-fraud use cases. We've had clients that have been very successful doing that. They always use us first to stop the fraud. I mean, that's what we do. But then they say, hey, the data's all here. I can make a decision based on regulatory compliance or policy compliance. So if I just add a little bit of information in the UDF or et cetera, I can make rules-based decisions on policy. That's really, really helpful at times. Making decisions on customer value or margin. We've had clients that have asked us through Kount Access or Trusted Device, can we identify a client as they land on a landing page without authentication? And that's a capability that we just recently added, where you can take a device ID and you can ask us a question, and if they've got a purchase history with us, we can go back and tell you who we think they are. And then this stopping elder abuse through gift cards with Kount and White Pages Pro, this is a shout out to Staples. Super fun story, but basically they figured out that a lot of gift card fraud was happening, cost them a ton of money, but it was the old, not the old, that's the wrong way to say it. It was the scam where someone calls a vulnerable person, an elderly person, and tells them Jimmy's in prison, and if we don't get $1,000 in gift cards by tomorrow, Jimmy's going away. And when I heard this, I felt a little smugly like, how would you fall for this? Like, how would you fall for it? And then when you find out how vulnerable the people are that this is being done to, it makes my voice shake that it's so despicable. So what Staples did is they figured out, you got X amount, if a gift card order is above this amount, we'll call out to White Pages Pro. I think they even asked White Pages Pro to put this feature in, which is what is the estimated age of the person that occupies that phone number, that residence, that email, etc. And if it's over a certain amount, Staples has a white glove interdiction team that calls them and explains to them, probably repeatedly, that Jimmy's not in prison. This is a scam. You're being scammed. That's like when you love helping people and you love doing good and you love stopping the bad guys. Like, that's a super smart way to do it, and that makes me feel tremendous. Okay, insider clients. And I think this has been alluded to quite a bit. Cybersecurity, customer experience, and fraud prevention are like super intertwined now. More and more, our engagements are coming from IT, the CISO, marketing, customer experience groups, et cetera. In general, just non-fraud groups. But our fraud customers, our fraud teams that work with us are educating and negotiating with these other groups. Like I say somewhat flippantly, marketing has never seen a bad lead, and IT has never seen unusual behavior that they shouldn't block. But as fraud people that understand how customers really work and how they really interact, we have a different perspective, and it's a really powerful way for us to create outsized value by helping them understand that there are more nuanced approaches and there are different ways of thinking about that. Okay. The last one that I want to talk about is hidden fraud. And this was alluded to in both Tricia's presentation and Sven's presentation. The folks on the AI panel I sat in talked about provisioning credit, et cetera. So let's talk about what do I mean by hidden fraud. What I'm talking about is fraud and synthetic identity losses that are hiding in other loss lines. We tend to look at, as fraud folks, we tend to look at chargebacks, refunds, declines, etc. But these are other loss lines that other parts of the business might be responsible for, and they don't think about it as fraud because they don't think about it with the fraud mindset. They don't see it. It's hidden. In 2018, a very wise analyst with Gartner co-authored a report that talked about credit write-offs skyrocketing due to synthetic ID and synthetic business ID. And accounts are created, underwritten, have a great credit score, and mysteriously go into default. And the punch line there was, it was synthetic ID, the identities that were being credit assessed or underwritten or whatever, they were synthetic. They were stolen identity information. 2 weeks ago, Payment Source reported auto loans and credit card defaults have reached a 7-year high. This despite like a robust economy, unemployment at the lowest level possible, not lowest level, very low level, right? And in general, auto and credit cards, business booming. The losses there are real. They don't have the numbers wrong about the losses, but the causes are misunderstood. If you think over the last 36 months, the online application for auto loans has skyrocketed, right? Credit cards have, for a long time, been allowed to be provisioned online or through apps, etc., but they've gotten more aggressive. These are not real people. These are synthetic identities. And when you go back home, the places to look, a really, really common line item is bad debt, usually controlled by finance or treasury. Very rarely do they talk about that in terms of fraud. And you can also look in things like poor conversion. Like when we've had programs that were promotional programs, et cetera, and they used to work very good, but now the lifetime value, the average lifetime value of customers is going down, or they're not behaving like we expect them to behave. It's not like they are there, they take advantage, and then they're gone. Well, the reason is they weren't real people. But you would know your business better than I do. Look wherever write-downs or impairments occur. So part of the reason why, just a quick discussion on, and this is the way Tricia, when she was at Gartner, thought about it, and I think it's an excellent explainer, but credit models, the credit risk group doesn't think about fraud. They think about credit risk, right? And so first-party fraud, credit risk models, they just perform poorly. They're not going to predict it. Sometimes fraud tools can help uncover it. For synthetic ID, credit risk never works, basically. But fraud detection tools and techniques and platforms do a really, really good job of that. Third-party fraud, similar story. And then, but the thing that credit models do a really, really good job at is unintentional defaults. So when a real person, when they assess a real person, they're really good at figuring out, are they going to be able to make their commitments? Are they going to fulfill what they thought they were going to do? And this is both B2B and B2C, because synthetic business identity is as real a thing as synthetic consumer identity. And in my take is synthetic consumer identity can take you for thousands. Synthetic business identity can take you for tens of thousands or millions. And to think about, like, okay, so fraud detection signals, what are they good for? And this is a subset list of things to think about in terms of fraud detection signals. Obviously, there's tons more inside Kount. and tons more inside your business. But the positive signals, like when you think about the things that go into the Boost safety rating to help you figure out if this client is a good client or not, or if this customer is a good customer, those positive assurance signals can be very, very, very helpful. Also, positive assurance signals very helpful for risky customers because you're balancing the relative risk and the relative safety with that customer, and you want to make the right decision. The same to some degree for bad customers, but a fraud tool can provide a lot of negative signals for bad customers. Like we've sort of been talking about this whole time, like the different ways you can see whether they're refunders, resellers, triangulation fraud, etc. You can see that based on the fraud signals that we generate across the network. And then obviously the criminal stuff. That's the stuff we think about every day. So, and this was advice straight from Gartner. What to do is, one, be aware. Go and find those lost line items and do a cross-functional review. Because I can pretty much guarantee you that someone with a fraud mindset is going to be able to look at whatever data that they have, even if it's super sparse because they're not collecting a ton of stuff. You'll be able to look at it and say, that is not bad credit. That's synthetic ID. That's fraudulent behavior, etc. And then what's first-party fraud? And if you bifurcate those two things, that is the first step in actually studying what is going on. And that allows you to really more accurately quantify what's causing the losses and the write-downs. Then, if there's a significant portion of these that look like synthetic ID, or there's a business case that can be made, or there's value that can be generated, think about using your fraud tools in some of those same processes. It's all the same. Like it's a application or an account creation or affiliate or a reseller. You know, the way they register on your platforms and the way they use stuff, it's very similar to the stuff that you're doing today. And you put those in place on places where you provision services or other teams provision services, and I think it can give them a lot more information about the losses that are happening, but in the same way I talked about the interesting use cases and the way people are learning more about their customers with fraud data. You might find very, very well that the information that you can generate might be very, very valuable in understanding what's going on. And then obviously incorporate that data once you have it into the underwriting or credit provisioning processes. Okay. Thank you all very much. We have time for questions, and I'd love to hear either a question or hear what you think.
Any questions, folks?
All right, then. I would say if you have something that you don't want to ask in front of people, I'll hang out up here, or come check me out, or come check with me. Come check with me sometime. So, oh wait, do we have a question?
I actually have a question. So about the refund, the people providing refunds. So what happens after they get the refund for you if you don't give the money back to the people? Like, what if you're scamming the scammer?
I think that if you're scamming the scammer and you don't actually give the refund back,
or the portion, they're cut.
Oh,
I mean, how is that?
Oh, they shame you on the forums, or they technically probably can't do a whole hell of a lot to you, but they're not happy. You won't do business with them again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you. Come visit if you'd like.